Hello, Janice.
Hello, Anthony.
Today, let's talk about 5 tips to be a great probate paralegal. This is right in your wheelhouse.
Yes, love this topic.
So, we are recording this primarily for our paralegal listeners, all of Janice's fans and groupies, right?
Yeah.
And for anyone in that circle who wants to add this practice area, probate, to their toolbox, to their skill set. But this is also for our clients and for anyone who's just generally interested in probate, because it really does give you a sneak peek, kind of behind the curtain, about what it is that Janice or most probate paralegals do for you. When you hire somebody, a law firm with skilled paralegals, you're kind of seeing all the good work they're doing on your behalf, which is nice, yeah?
Yeah.
All right, so today Janice will cover those 5 tips to be a great probate paralegal. Number 1, research. Number 2, number 2, IRS and taxes. Number 3, use checklists. 4, phone skills. And 5, learn your attorney. So Janice, why don't you start us off with research.
Okay, so as with any job, you need to know how to do it, right? So I always tell everyone when they're getting into this, research. You can't do enough. Get to know the rules of court, not only for the counties you'll be working with, but you want to start at the top, right? Like, for example, Pennsylvania or New York, they have some top level information. Start there, read it, learn it, look at the forms, and then go down to the county level and see, okay, what do I need to do? How do I start? You look at the forms, you look at the information. You'd be surprised at what's online, and I would just implore you to just sit down and start Googling. Another thing is, don't be afraid to ask other senior paralegals, or don't be afraid to call the court if you have a question, right? You're learning this and you're trying to figure it out. Don't be afraid to ask. The more you learn, the more valuable you will be in your field.
Yeah, most people may think research is necessarily books or Google or online, but a lot of it is just picking up the phone and just drawing on other people's experience.
Yep. Yeah, and again, the more you learn, the more that you'll be valuable. So one tip, have a list of contacts within each court. So when you call and you make a human connection, remember their name, write it down, write the phone number somewhere. So at the Bronx, you can talk to, Miss Smith, and you start to build a rapport. It's going to be a little easier next time when you have to call with a question or you have an issue.
Yeah, until Miss Smith gets rotated out to a different county and you lose your contact. I hate when that happens.
I know it does. But, try it. Just write it down and you never know.
Cool. Next, teach us about how IRS and taxes, or just familiarizing yourself with those areas is a great tip to be a great probate paralegal.
So absolutely. Just as I told you before, to research the courts and the rules, research the federal and state taxes as it applies to states. So you want to be familiar with the forms before you have to use them. So if you pull up the form, the estate forms, the tax returns, you're going to know what you need. That's usually one of the last things that you do is to file the returns, but you're prepping for them the whole time. So that first time that you ask for information and you start gathering information, you're really leading towards the end result of filing them. It's much easier than at the end learning the forms and realize, oh man, for the last 6 months I could have been, compiling all this data. So it's much easier to get to know them.
Yeah, I guess a simple example of that would be date of death valuations for the 706.
Yes. Yep.
706 isn't due for 9 months after date of passing, but you're probably in contact with the banks from the very beginning. You might as well get those date of death values right there from when you start talking to them. Yeah.
The very first time, yes, because it does take a while to get them. It is not instant. Nothing about this is instant in this process, but it does take a while. So if you started, like you said, real soon after you start taking on the case, you're going to be in a better position. Little bonus tip. I'm going to try to give you some bonus tips on each one. Be sure you're using the most recent forms. So, like I said, if you start at the beginning of the case and you get to know the form, what you're dealing with, you definitely want to check to make sure you have the most recent form when it comes time, 6, 9, 10 months from now, because the IRS and your state, they change them often. I mean, really often.
Good. All right. Third tip, use checklists.
Yes, very important. There are so many There's so many steps. Well, to every process in law or anything, there's so many steps. So this is going to help you keep track of the probate case from start to finish. You're going to help you keep track of timing, and it's going to eliminate missed steps. So if you have your checklist that starts with A to Z and you start going through your checklist, even if you get off and you skip around a little bit, it's okay. You at least have one, I guess, sheet of paper, if you do it that way, that you can check off to make sure that you did it. It's most counties and states have them online, and if they don't, use that research we talked about originally to create your own. Even if it's not perfect, it's still going to be better than trying to wing each one and remember each step.
Well, when you mentioned the counties and states, I think you're referring to the court procedure steps.
Yes.
For the actual estate administration, if you're helping with that, you might want to ask your attorney, or sometimes some of the softwares have checklists for which accounts you need to go after, or contact, and so forth.
Correct. And it's just easier. And my bonus tip is when you have a due date, set it in your calendar. Not only put it in your calendar, but put numerous reminders, whether that's, a month before, a week before, depending on what it is, but use your calendar to your advantage with the reminders. That's going to, again, make you invaluable to your attorney when he doesn't or she doesn't have to keep up with it. You just know, hey, guess what? In 1 month, we have to file this document.
Yeah, I can vouch for that. Janice,
Yeah.
When I can rely on you, or because I can rely on you to remind me that things are coming up or things need to be followed up on, that just frees up a lot of mental energy for me to just work on other things.
Yeah. And then, you know what? If you have reminders set on a calendar, we forget everything. For half the time, I forget what I have for breakfast. You're going to forget, but those reminders will be beneficial 6 months from now when you have to remember.
Very good. Number fourth tip on how to be a great probate paralegal. You're going to tell us about phone skills, yeah?
Yes. So I know this goes without saying, but learn who to call and what to say. So probate entails so many phone calls, and you have to track down a lot of information, debts, assets, banking information, tons of calls. But before you call, have a plan. You want to research what department you have to call. You want to have all the information ready for the deceased and the estate information. And you want to be specific with your requests. I know this sounds simple, but most people, when they answer the phone, you're probably not the first phone call that day, right? You're probably like the 100th. So you have very limited time to tell them, here's who I am, this is what I need, here's the information I have. It's going to cut down on your call time and then the follow-up time if you didn't have it right the first time. And you're, again, going to be invaluable if you can make one phone call or two, and you get farther with that one phone call. It's productivity.
It also helps to have some air of authority. I know.
Yes.
I know people respond differently to attorneys versus paralegals versus just laymen or clients. But if you can just say, no, usually this form is all you need to give us a check or our date of death valuation. If you can believe it, if you have the confidence, sometimes that'll get you over the edge and save you a lot of back and forth or asking for a supervisor.
Yes, absolutely. Just know what you're doing beforehand. And then my bonus tip is, again, most people you speak with are going to have such limited time, maybe shorter attention spans, and typically overworked. For example, you call like the IRS for one. They're busy. We get it. Tip, do not take it personally. Take short pleasantries, even if they come off really cranky in the beginning, will go a long way. You'd be surprised at what I can accomplish on a phone call with a cranky person by just a very quick nicety or pleasantry.
Well, you're a very nice person, so that's
thanks. But
easier for you to pull off than a crank.
Okay, so maybe that's a skill that should be practiced. So sometimes, as a paralegal, you will deal with this on a daily basis, and it'll get you a little farther.
Touche. All right. Final tip to be a great probate paralegal: learn your attorney.
Yes. So this is very specific. When you can do everything else that I said in the beginning about researching before you start. But so once you start with an attorney, right when you get in there, learn their preferences down to the smallest detail. So it sounds silly, but learn their preferences such as maybe font, spacing, their writing style, contractions. Some people like you to say instead of don't, they want do not. It sounds simple, but if you're working for the attorney and you want it to look like the attorney wrote it, because you're essentially writing and handing it over for proof, it's going to be so much less back and forth if every time they don't have to tell you, I don't like that font, I don't like the way this is written. It's going to cut out so many unnecessary editing changes. And then you're going to become really invaluable, because your attorney, he or she, is going to be, okay, just draft it. They might not even need to see it as much and nitpick, but it's just, it's going to be one step that's going to take so much off their plate.
Yeah. What have you learned about me, if anything? And please be flattering, because this is public.
So yes, no. Do you have a font preference? You like, what is it? The typewriter font.
Yes.
What's the name of it? Yeah, that one.
It's a fixed width font, which I like for some reason.
Yes. So you like it that way. You also like more room in the top part of your letter, the margins. Am I right? So you don't like it all smushed up there. You like it bigger. And just different things. Like you like the ending, sincerely, Anthony Park has to be in the middle. But that's things that I learned that, again, if you had to tell me every time, Janice, I want more space up front. Janice, I like this in the middle. That just seems pretty unnecessary, right?
Yeah.
And so my bonus tip for this one is, instead of asking your preferences, like I didn't ask you what your preferred font was, I took the initiative, which I suggest everyone does, and I reviewed letters and documents that you drafted about 6 months prior to me starting. So I looked at that and I said, okay, this is how he writes his letters. And you also don't like, what is it, hyphenation? Like at the end of the sentence, you don't like the word split to the new one?
Yeah, when you justify for the, I know what you're talking about.
What is it, hypernation or something where, so if you have like a big long word and then you put the dash, you don't like that. But I learned that from looking at your letters.
Wow, you're making me realize how picky I am. All right.
No, absolutely not picky. I've seen a lot worse, but I just know that that's how you prefer. Now, when I write a letter, you're not going to have to look at that little stuff. So again, invaluable for the attorney, takes stuff off their plate and makes it a little bit easier.
And for any of my colleagues who are, other fellow probate attorneys who may be listening to this, I think these are things you should be looking for in your paralegals, right? Because trust me, it makes your life so much easier.
Right. You know what? And the only thing I can say to all paralegals, no matter what field, is take the initiative. Don't ask, don't wait. You can do everything that I just said today without asking. You just do it.
Very good. Thanks for those tips, Janice. I don't know if I've mentioned this to you. We've been getting a lot of great feedback on these paralegal episodes, and that's one of the reasons why we're going to keep doing them for a while. Hopefully, helping your peers and colleagues and developing a good talent pool that, me personally, I can eventually benefit from.
Exactly. It's like a win-win.
Yeah.
And then if paralegals that are listening, obviously this is not an all-inclusive list. Maybe give us some ideas in the comments of some other things. That way other people can learn from this.
Cool. I think that's all we have for today, Janice. Yeah.
Absolutely. And so check on Anthony's book, How Probate Works. This is also a really great guide for probate paralegals. Even though it's, for executors, heirs, and families, it still has some really great information about like what to expect. One more thing in your research.
Very good. All right. Thanks everyone for listening. Thank you, Janice. And we'll talk next time.
We'll talk soon.
Bye now.